Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? What we're going to be talking about today is something that I heard um, on Tucker, and I also saw it on Twitter, X, whatever. And I thought it was very, very interesting. And I've heard of this term before, DUMBS, D-U-M-B-S. And I was just like, wow, huh, okay. So I wanted to bring it to your attention. So before we go any further, hey there, my name is Autumn, and on this channel we talk about prepping and homesteading. Um, we talk about gardening, and we also talk about current events sometimes. I have my second channel, ABG Prepping, and over there we talk about current events. I also have a Patreon, and over there we talk about stuff that we can't talk about here due to YouTube's terms and policies, okay? Now, you see this post right here? It says $21 trillion is missing. Where is it going? Catherine Austin Fitz, that's with two T's, Fitz, says our government has been building underground or entire underground cities and transportation networks, DUMBS, D-U-M-B-S. She did a 2-year study and estimated that there are 170 DUMBs with transportation network connecting all of them. Tucker Carlson confirms that he knew a contractor who worked on one in D.C. Okay, so now listen to this. Now I want to address the missing money and the DUMBs claim, which is short for deep underground military bases. Okay, so the source of the claim, okay, it's been analyzed that the DoD and HUD Office of Inspector General reports identifying $21 trillion in unsupported journal voucher adjustments between 1998 and 2015. These are accounting entries lacking documentation, meaning that the source or the destination of the funds is unclear. For example, in 2015, the Army alone reported $6.5 trillion in such adjustments, 54 times its authorized budget of $122 billion. So these are bookkeeping entries that were used to balance accounts when records don't match, akin to fudging numbers to reconcile a checkbook. The DoD's OIG noted issues like erased records, inadequate systems, and missing audit trails, making it impossible to trace the money. Some argue that this reflects sloppy accounting or systemic fraud, not necessarily missing cash. Now, the $21 trillion figure is staggering, larger than the US GDP, which is 18.6 trillion in 2015, or the stock market's value, which is 30 trillion. However, it represents cumulative adjustments, not a single plot of vanished money. There are critics that will argue that it includes both inflows and outflows, potentially netting out, and it isn't all secret or misused. So the DoD announced its first ever audit in 2017, partly spurred by the findings, but results have been inconclusive. The Pentagon, they have failed audits ever since, citing complex systems and legacy issues. There's no clear evidence of theft or misallocation has been publicly confirmed, though secrecy fuels suspicion. So I'm going to talk about the DUMBs and the underground city theory. Okay. Now, this woman, okay, Fitz, she's a former assistant secretary of HUD and investment banker. Okay, she has suggested that the missing funds could be financing black budget programs, including the DUMBs, which are the deep underground military bases. Okay. In a 2025 interview that she did with Tucker, she estimated that there's 170 such bases in the U.S., some that are city-sized, that are connected by a transportation network. And she bases this on a 2-year study that she did with someone by the last name of Skidmore. Though the specifics are not publicly detailed. Okay. So one has to wonder, you know, I mean, if you're going to come out and say something like this, I want to see receipts. Right on. So these DUMBs are alleged covert military facilities built deep underground for secrecy, often tied to conspiracy theories about elite survival plans, extraterrestrial research, breakaway civilians. Known examples like Cheyenne Mountain Complex, okay, which is a Cold War era bunker that exists. But their scale is far smaller than the city-sized complexes. So there's social media posts and alternative media site whistleblowers, like a supposed former government geologist claiming involvement in these DUMBs, or contractors allegedly working in secret bases, but they lack verifiable documentation. Like I said, I want to see the receipts, you know. So the Denver International Airport, okay, I'm sure you've heard the controversy behind that. This is often cited as a DUMB site due to its massive underground structures and Masonic imagery. Though official explanations attribute these to utilities and storage. Now, Fitz and others suggest that the $21 trillion could fund vast infrastructure, with some social media posts claiming classified DoD documents reveal 340 plus bases, some over 2.3 million square feet. No such documents are publicly available, and these claims are unverified. So mainstream sources dismiss large-scale DUMBs as implausible due to logistical challenges like concealing construction, ventilation, waste management, and lack of concrete evidence. The $21 trillion is, if it is misallocated, could also fund other black budget programs, okay, covert ops, advanced tech, or simply just reflect accounting errors. So where could the money be going? Well, the DoD and intelligence agencies operate special access programs, or they're also called SAPs, which are highly classified and exempt from standard oversight. These could include advanced weapons space programs or covert operations, potentially absorbing significant funds. The Pentagon's outdated systems and failure to comply with the 1996 audit law suggest much of the $21 trillion reflects bureaucratic incompetence rather than deliberate theft. Former DoD officials admit to cooking the books to mislead Congress and inflating budgets. So this woman, Fitz, she argues that the money funds a breakaway civilization, which is a paralyzed society of elite controlled infrastructure, while compelling to people like us who are people of the prepared mind. This lacks direct evidence beyond the accounting discrepancies. So social media posts speculate that the funds support global geoengineering or secret space programs, but these are fringe claims with no substantiation. So from my point of view, the $21 trillion saga reinforces distrust in centralized systems. Whether the money funds DUMBs, secret tech, or is just lost to incompetence, it highlights the government's opacity and potential to prioritize hidden agendas over public welfare. And preppers might see DUMBs as elite bunkers for surviving an engineered crises, leaving the unprepared vulnerable. So what are the key takeaways? The $21 trillion, whether missing or unaccounted for, shows the government's inability or unwillingness to be transparent. If DUMBs exist, they're likely for the elites, not the public. The lack of mainstream coverage suggests media complicity or suppression. So what are some evidence gaps that I found? While the $21 trillion in adjustments is documented, it's linking it to DUMBs relies on speculation. This woman Fitz 170 base estimate lacks transparent methodology, and whistleblower claims are anecdotal. The Pentagon's complexity, larger than any corporation, and outdated systems could explain much of the discrepancy without invoking conspiracy. The $21 trillion isn't a missing pile, but a sum of poorly tracked transactions. Social media amplify the D.U.M.B.S narrative, but unverified claims like the 340 plus spaces risk distorting the issue. Preppers should weigh evidence critically to avoid paranoia driven planning. So the conclusion here is that the $21 trillion in unsupported adjustments is real, per DoD and HUD's reports, but whether it funds D.U.M.B.S or underground cities remains unproven. It could reflect fraud, black budgets, bureaucratic failure, each concerning for every single person. But the claims of 170 D.U.M.B.S is intriguing, but lacks hard evidence, making it a hypothesis to monitor rather than a fact to act on. The takeaway is clear here, though. Government opacity demands self-sufficiency and vigilance, whether the threat is a power outage or a hidden underground network. Yeah. So that is my take. That is my unprofessional opinion. So you could take it or leave it. All right, guys, I am out of here. I will see you in the next one. You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.